Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is April 9th, 2018, and I wanted to bring this story to your attention as it is quite important and quite alarming. The United States Supreme Court has ruled that cops can kill non threatening people as long as they say they were scared. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of a police officer who opened fire on a woman from a distance while she stood on her property, claiming he feared for his safety. In a ruling that will be used to reinforce a disturbing pattern practiced by police officers across the United States, the Supreme Court has determined that officers who shoot non-threatening citizens are completely justified and cannot face consequences for their actions. Cannot face consequences for their actions. The case of Casella v. Hughes originated from a police shooting in Tucson, Arizona in 2010, and we'll shift your attention to this. This is a much more detailed reporting of the events. On May 10th, somebody in Hughes's neighborhood called 911 to report that a woman was hacking a tree with a kitchen knife. Casella and another police officer, Alex Garcia, heard about the report over the radio in their patrol car, and they responded. A few minutes later, they were flagged down by the person who called 911. A few moments after that, a third officer arrived on her bicycle. Officer Garcia spotted a woman, later identified as Sharon Chadwick, standing next to a car in the driveway of a nearby house. A chain-link fence with a locked gate separated Chadwick from the officers. The officers then saw another woman, Hughes, emerge from the house carrying a large knife at her side. Hughes matched the description of the woman who had been seen hacking a tree. Hughes walked toward Chadwick and stopped no more than 6 feet from her. It was at this time that all three officers drew their guns. At least twice they told Hughes to drop the knife. Viewing the record in the light most favorable to Hughes, Chadwick said, "Take it easy," to both Hughes and the officers. Hughes appeared to be calm. She did not acknowledge the officer's presence or drop the knife. The top bar of the chain link fence blocked Casella's line of fire, so he dropped to the ground and shot Hughes 4 times through the fence. The officers jumped the fence, handcuffed Hughes, called the paramedics, transported her to a hospital where she was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. And this all happened less than a minute upon their arrival. All three of the officers later said that at the time of the shooting, they subjectively believed Hughes to be a threat to Chadwick. After the shooting, the officers discovered that Chadwick and Hughes were roommates, that Hughes had a history of mental illness, and that Hughes had been upset with Chadwick over a $20 debt. In an affidavit produced during discovery, Chadwick said that a few minutes before the shooting, her boyfriend had told her Hughes was threatening to kill Chadwick's dog, named Bunny. Chadwick came home to find Hughes somewhat distressed, and Hughes was in the house holding Bunny in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. Hughes asked Chadwick if she wanted her to use the knife on the dog. So basically, she's holding the dog hostage. She wants her $20. The officers knew none of this, so when they arrived, Hughes was actually going outside to get the $20 from her car to settle the debt and de-escalate the situation herself. In her affidavit, Chadwick said that she did not feel endangered at any time based on her experience as Hughes' roommate. Chadwick said that she occasionally has these type of episodes in which it's basically attention-seeking behavior. So that was the story. That's what these officers confronted. That was the situation. It was a roommate dispute over $20. That was not going to escalate any further. And again, this happened all within less than a minute of their arrival. So Hughes files a lawsuit against Casella based on the claim that her civil rights were violated during the shooting. A federal district judge ruled in favor of Casella. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the decision and argued that Hughes' Fourth Amendment rights were clearly violated. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and now they have reversed the Ninth Circuit Court's decision, and in its opinion on the case, the court argued that there should not be a debate over whether Hughes's Fourth Amendment rights were violated because Casella should automatically be afforded qualified immunity as a police officer. And this is an excerpt from their decision. The court need not and does not decide whether Casella violated the Fourth Amendment when he used deadly force against Hughes. For even assuming a Fourth Amendment violation occurred, a proposition that is not at all evident, on these facts, Casella was at least entitled to qualified immunity. Qualified immunity attaches when an official's conduct does not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. Because the focus is on whether the officer had fair notice that her conduct was unlawful, reasonableness is judged against the backdrop of the law at the time of the conduct. As the Scottish blog noted, even if the Supreme Court judges believed that Casella was guilty of violating Hughes's Fourth Amendment rights, Casella still could not be sued because any rights that he might have violated were not clearly established, a key factor in whether government officials enjoy immunity from lawsuits. Even though Chadwick testified that she did not feel threatened by Hughes or the knife in her hand at the time of the shooting, the Supreme Court has chosen to side with the police officer who chose to open fire within seconds before taking the time to accurately assess the situation. By supporting Casella's actions, the Supreme Court has essentially given all police officers a blank check, which says that if they see a person standing in the distance on her property and she appears to be holding a weapon in her hand, the officer has the right to open fire and shoot her multiple times, as long as the officer maintains that he feared for his safety, even if he cannot prove that the person he targeted was threatening him. Are you... This is unbelievable. In a dissenting opinion, I hope there were more than just one, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor argued that while the other two officers attempted to use verbal commands to convince Hughes to drop the knife, Casella made no attempt to de-escalate the situation and opted to use deadly force. In fact, it sounds as if Chadwick was the most level-headed of everyone there. She was the one who was telling, hey, everyone just take it easy. Hughes was nowhere, and this is, again, an excerpt from Sotomayor. Hughes was nowhere near the officers, had committed no illegal act, was suspected of no crime, and did not raise the knife in the direction of Chadwick or anyone else. Faced with these facts, the two other responding officers held their fire, and one testified that he wanted to continue trying verbal commands to see if that would work. But not Casella. He thought it necessary to use deadly force, and so, without giving a warning that he would open fire, he shot Hughes 4 times, leaving her seriously injured. Casella did not wait for Hughes to register, much less respond to, the officer's rushed commands. Instead, Casella immediately and unilaterally escalated the situation. It is no secret that police officers regularly get away with shooting and killing innocent citizens in the United States, and they do so by arguing that they opened fire because they feared for their safety. By choosing to support a trigger-happy officer who chose to put lives at risk, the Supreme Court has made it clear that there will be no justice for the innocent woman who received life-threatening injuries as a result of the attack, and that police will continue to get away with targeting the mentally ill and will face no consequences for their actions. You know, I got to tell you, this is a staggering decision. The Supreme Court of the United States just gave a 007 license to kill to police. That's what they just did. And their justification, all they have to say, and they do it now, is that they feared for their safety. And I want you to appreciate the language, okay? This isn't like, you know, we're talking about cops can kill non-threatening citizens. That is everyone walking down the street right now That is everyone driving in their car right now. Everyone walking around right now is, in essence, a non threatening person. However, if you happen to be unlucky enough to scare a police officer, well, guess what? They can kill you, and there will be no consequences. Are you appreciating what the Supreme Court, the amount of indiscriminate power that they just made every police officer in the land, the judge, the jury, and the executioner? This is a staggering decision. This is a worrisome decision. They're not talking about, hiring people who are more capable of dealing with mentally ill, who are more adept at maybe assessing a situation very quickly and opting to de-escalate. They are giving police officers, some of whom are obviously psychologically unfit to hold a badge and a gun. Many of these are suffering. If they're coming from military, do they have PTSD? And this is the type of officer that's cruising up to a situation, apparently. They're not talking about shifting or changing the rules of engagement. They just gave a 007 license for police officers to kill non-threatening people. Wow. That's all I got for now. Have a good day.